Millionaire finds his black adoptive daughter eating in the rain, the real reason leaves him in tears. A father's wealth meant nothing the day he found his child abandoned in the rain. Alexander Gray's luxury sedan crawled through the downpour, the world a blur of gray. Then he saw her, a small, huddled figure on a public bench. His 12-year-old daughter, Chloe, was soaked to the bone, shivering as she tried to eat a cheap snack from a vending machine. Her school uniform was tattered and patched. This wasn't an accident. This was a betrayal. And the question was already burning in his mind, who could do this to his little girl? Alexander Gray had built a financial empire from nothing. In the cutthroat world of high-stakes investments, his name was synonymous with ruthless precision and an uncanny ability to foresee risk. He solved problems with spreadsheets, wire transfers, and unwavering determination. At the heart of this empire was his greatest, most cherished investment, his daughter, Chloe. Adopted after losing her parents, she was the one part of his life that wasn't a transaction, the source of a love so profound it often left him breathless. To ensure her world was perfect, he hired Margaret Evans. Margaret was more than a nanny, she was a cornerstone of their lives. With an impeccable resume and a demeanor of devoted efficiency, she had been managing their household for 3 years. Alexander trusted her completely, granting her full access to accounts and, most importantly, the care of his child. He saw the expensive groceries in the fridge, heard the reports of piano lessons and tutoring, and rested easy, believing he had provided Chloe with the most secure of worlds. The tragic irony was that Alexander, a man who had built a fortune by identifying every potential threat in business, was utterly blind to the predator living under his own roof. He was so focused on building a future for his daughter that he never once suspected the woman he paid an executive's salary was systematically dismantling Chloe's present, brick by emotional brick. His greatest strength in the boardroom became his most devastating weakness at home. The confrontation was subtle, a predator testing its prey. The morning after finding Chloe on the bench, Alexander watched Margaret move through their sun-drenched kitchen with practiced ease. "Chloe's uniform seems a bit worn, Margaret," he mentioned casually, his tone that of a distracted employer. "Perhaps order a new set." "Of course, Mr. Gray," she replied, her smile seamless. "The budget has been a little tight this month, but I'll see what I can find on sale." The lie was delivered with such calm authority that a chill, sharper than the one from the rain, shot down Alexander's spine. The budget was more than generous, he had transferred the stipend himself. That was the first thread. Pulling it unraveled everything. In the sanctum of his home office, Alexander dove into the financial records. The generous monthly stipend was being drained, not for school fees or new clothes, but for cash withdrawals and vague supplies from stores he'd never heard of. A call to the prestigious academy confirmed his dread. Tuition was 3 months overdue, with Margaret having assured them the family was restructuring finances. This wasn't negligence, it was a calculated siphon. He brought in his old friend, David Chen, a private investigator whose digital prowess matched Alexander's financial acumen. While David began a deep dive into Margaret's past, Alexander turned to his own fortress, the estate security system. For 2 agonizing hours, he scoured archived footage, and the digital lens revealed a monster. He saw Margaret pocketing Chloe's allowance, heard her sweetly venomous voice telling his daughter, "Your father travels so much to get a break, dear. It's natural." He watched, fists clenched, as she sold Chloe's new winter coat, the one he'd specifically asked about, to a woman at the door, later telling Chloe it had been donated to a child in real need. David's call confirmed the worst. "Alex, she's a ghost. Margaret Evans is one of at least 3 aliases. She specializes in families like yours, affluent, adoptive, with parents too busy to notice the cracks. She's a professional, and Chloe is her current mark." He detailed the offshore account, the 6-figure sum accumulated over years of this exact cruelty. The final piece of evidence wasn't a financial record, but a note David found in a hidden forum post under one of her aliases. "The key is to make the child feel like a burden. A grateful child is a quiet child. A quiet child lets you work in peace." Alexander leaned back in his chair, the city's glittering skyline stretching before him. The heartbroken father was gone, receding like a tide. In his place sat the titan of industry, the strategist who had dismantled corporate raiders and hostile takeovers. The emotion didn't vanish, it was forged into a new, unbreakable weapon. Margaret hadn't just stolen his money, she had tried to steal his daughter's soul. And for that, he would not rest until her entire world was a pile of ashes. The trap was set in the very living room Margaret had believed was her domain. She returned from her shopping trip, arms laden with designer bags, to find Alexander waiting calmly. But he was not alone. His friend David Chen and 2 federal agents stood as a silent, imposing wall of judgment. "Margaret," Alexander began, his voice dangerously calm. "We need to discuss your accounting." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. With the cold precision of a surgeon, he laid bare her crimes. He slid printed bank statements across the coffee table, highlighting the offshore transfers. He displayed photos of Chloe's sold belongings, recovered from her online marketplace account. Margaret's mask of composure began to crack, her denials growing increasingly frantic. "This is a misunderstanding. I was safeguarding." "Then safeguard this," Alexander interrupted. He tapped his tablet, and the room filled with the sound of her own voice, crisp and cruel from the hidden recordings. "Men like your father have children who look like them. You were just a charitable impulse." The blood drained from Margaret's face. Her eyes darted, wild with trapped animal panic, as the federal agent stepped forward with handcuffs. The metallic click echoed in the silent room. It was the sound of her reign's end. As she was led away, she spat one last venomous look at Alexander. "You think you've won? You still neglected her. You were never there." Alexander met her gaze, a cold, victorious fire in his eyes. "You confused my absence for a lack of love. That was your fatal error. While you rot in a cell, I will be home, being the father my daughter always knew I was." The silence that settled over the estate was no longer empty, but peaceful. The shadow of Margaret was gone, replaced by the bright, unburdened laughter of a child. That evening, Alexander sat with Chloe on the sofa, the truth laid bare between them. He held her small hands and dismantled every poisonous lie, one by one. "The money was always there," he whispered. "My arms were always open. You were never, for a single second, a burden. You are my daughter." Tears were shed, not of sorrow, but of release. Chloe, freed from the weight of believing she was unloved, began to blossom. Her shoulders, once hunched with anxiety, straightened. Her laughter, once rare, became the soundtrack of their home. She threw herself into school and friendships, her confidence growing each day, a living repudiation of every cruel word. Alexander watched her transformation, understanding that this was the only victory that mattered. The courtroom sentence and financial ruin of his enemy were mere formalities. The true justice was in Chloe's smile, in the secure way she now hugged him, no longer fearing he would let go. He had spent his life building an empire of wealth, but he learned that his greatest legacy was a single, unbreakable bond. He discovered that the most powerful force in the world is not the vengeance that destroys a villain, but the unconditional love that builds a child back up.